Sports Podcast.
Welcome to the All Sports Podcast with me, Matt, and today, just Joel. How are you, Joel?
Hello, Matt. Yeah, doing well. Thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, doing good, thank you. Is your mood buoyed by the Euros or not affected?
I'm unaffected. Yeah, I'm still clinging to the narrative that that England are going to go all the way just by scraping through. Basically, they're not playing very well, but yeah, pretty much unaffected from last week. I don't think too much out of the ordinary has happened.
Well, it's probably a fairly similar week, wasn't it? So tonight we will talk a little bit about the Euros. We will review and preview the fixtures and a bit of a touch on the F1 from the weekend with the home Grand Prix for many teams at Silverstone, the British Grand Prix, and a little bit of Wimbledon and maybe a little bit of Tour de France and anything else that's going on in the sporting world. So we'll get into it then. Not really affected by the England result too much. Pretty similar game, it seemed like to me, to the previous one, but I thought England maybe playing a little bit better and looking a bit more threatening in attack. Specific players that hadn't been attacking well or getting the option to. Probably most prominently, Bukayo Saka really caught my eye. What about you?
Yeah, Saka stood out massively. I think he was the one player that it felt like when England got him on the ball, he was definitely scaring the Swiss left back, and yeah, had him on toast a couple of times. So yeah, I think from that perspective, and like first half generally, England looked pretty good, a little bit more fluid. There was a bit of a surprise in the sense that it had been leaked the day before. I think it was the day before that we pretty much knew the team, didn't we? So yeah. I think everybody had assumed that Saka was going to be playing left wing back. But then they lined up and Saka was still on the right and Trippier was still on the left. So it was a bit like, oh, okay. It was still a little bit unbalanced, but yeah, it seemed to work in that first half, particularly their pressing and their counter pressing. Like when Switzerland either won the ball back or were restarting, England were all over them. They were really struggling to get out in that first half, and England almost got a couple of moments from that. But
talk to me quickly about the unbalanced piece with Saka and why he would create balance in the left back position.
Yeah, just by going on the outside, basically, just by being able to go on his left foot on the outside. I don't necessarily feel like it would be a good thing for Saka, and I feel like he showed that actually he just needs to be on that right hand side because he's so good and can really cause problems for the opposition defenders there. I think it's that problem that we've seen all tournaments of Trippier constantly putting back inside and passing the ball backwards. And he was really, really high. And he's been like playing really high throughout the tournament. And I just think it's a bit odd. I just think it exacerbates that lack of a left foot for him because he has to turn back because he's so high. Like he doesn't have any other option. He's immediately got players in front of him. So the only thing that he can do is come back or inside.
And then that obviously condenses the space for the rest of the midfield. And
allows the defence to kind of overload on Saka's side and makes it more difficult for him. But he was so good on Saturday that even he was able to get around that really. That's like I said,
he looked like he does when he plays for Arsenal, which isn't how I've seen him play for England recently. Did he kind of have a point to prove in playing in his preferred position because he looked uncomfortable when he went to left back last week? So he kind of had a bit of a point to prove, and he's proved it, and we'll see him starting there pretty definitely on Wednesday night.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe a little bit of that, and just also I think Foden played in a slightly different position, and maybe he attracted some interest or like allowed Saka to make movements that he hadn't really been able to make in the games previously. Like one of the things that I noticed was like Walker's just complete reluctance to overlap. And anytime he did, he's clearly been instructed, like clearly he's been told to stay narrow and not overlap. I think it's probably to guard against the counter attack. So he's not going past Saka at all. But that means that whenever Walker did go around the outside, Saka was just able to come inside because all of a sudden there's an overload. So I wish we'd seen a little bit more of that, particularly when you could just feel it. Like Saka he was on top of that left back. Sorry, but yeah, I feel like they didn't quite exploit it as much as they could, and halftime probably came at a bad time. And after halftime, it was very much back to drifting through the game, not responding to the fact that the team had dropped off 5 to 10 yards. And like things that we've seen from this England side quite a lot. Switzerland
are no pushover, as they obviously showed in this game and have done now throughout the tournament. So I think it's not just on they were never going to play a full 90 of fluid, positive football. That Switzerland were always going to have their chances. It just seemed like England maybe gave them too much of a foothold and couldn't wrestle that momentum back. And it was in that period of momentum that Switzerland obviously went ahead.
It culminated in them taking the lead with like a nicely worked goal. But in I'd say 20 minutes between England kind of losing control and Switzerland scoring, England just couldn't get out. And one of the factors was Harry Kane. He was just dropping so deep. Like there were a couple of times where he ended up in like the left back and right back position, and it was like, why is this happening? So then when England did win the ball back, there was no kind of focal point for them to play through, and it became a real problem. And for whatever reason, Kane just doesn't look quite right. I mean, we've said this about him in tournaments before, and then he's gone on to play a really decisive role for England and get really important goals. So I wouldn't bet against that happening again. But in the last 2 games, for me, it's been very prominent that Kane isn't moving that well. His touch is a bit heavy and he's not quite in the right position. Like we talked about Saka getting into really good positions in the first half, and a couple of balls came across the face. Kane's just not in the right place.
I want to see a striker specifically a number 9 in 2 positions, back post or 6 or penalty spot. And 9 times out of 10, we didn't have a player in either positions. So if it's a cut back to the P spot or it's a cross goal to the back post, we didn't have anyone there anyway. So when they should have arrested that very, very quickly and addressed it, and that should have been done at half time, but it didn't seem to happen throughout the game. Like, does Kane ever do those runs? It seems like his goals are more outside the 6-yard box, like 6 to 18-yard box finishes, more than making those runs into the back post. Maybe he's not got the speed on a wing back to do that run and to finish ahead of them. But it was just very frustrating to see the ball go past the back post so many times.
A couple of times. Yeah, so I think that's like, obviously that's something that's been spoken about a lot, and like Kane's form is being discussed. I don't think it's like...
Would he still be there if he wasn't captain?
I don't know. Like,
I don't think so.
I think with his record for England and domestically, and being the player that he is,
are we not getting in Ronaldo territory here, down though?
I don't think it's quite at that point.
But his touch alone, like if you, seeing him not be able to hold the ball up and have a heavy touch and give away possession, that was quite frustrating. And we know I'm not a very pro Harry Kane anyway, but very concerned about this Harry Kane curse for trophyless seasons that he's now going to inflict on England.
Yeah, I mean, there is a school of thought that maybe he's not 100% fit, and it wouldn't be the first time that Kane has played through an injury to the detriment of his team. Like, he probably thinks that he's doing the right thing, and he's probably been encouraged as well by the coaching staff. Like, there's no question that they want him in the team, and probably rightfully so. But it's just whether the big picture, because I mean we've got Tony there who can do a very similar job to Kane. Like if anything, like more of the job that we need in the team, like occupying the centre halves and creating that space in between the lines for players like Foden and Bellingham. But doubtless it wouldn't go exactly that way if we brought Tony in, and I don't think that he will. I don't think it's very likely that he drops Harry Kane for Ivan Toney at all.
But may get even more time next game if we're in a similar position to what we were. If we get to 70 minutes, probably he's looking at bringing Kane off or changing it up rather than later on.
Yeah, possibly. It's just not really in Gareth's makeup, is it? He's very much a wait and see kind of guy when it comes to the substitutions. I mean, exactly that happened on Saturday. It was, let's wait until they score, and then if they do score, we'll do something. But until that point, let's not do anything. And then as soon as he made the changes, like obviously the game state changes and the Swiss back off a little bit as well because they have scored a goal. But they had an immediate impact. Both Eze and Palmer had immediate impacts. And obviously Shaw coming on gave us that balance that we've been talking about a lot. And I think there was just not long after he came on, he played like a sweeping switch of play with his left foot, and it was like,
missing this.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, look, I'm not saying that Luke Shaw's like the answer to all of England's problems, but having somebody who is left-footed and can shift the ball and switch the play is...
Yeah, there's being left-footed, but then it's also his style of play, his distribution, and also his support on the wing-back position is pretty decent too. So.
Yeah. I mean, he did look quite funny, I thought, like with his bleach blonde hair and kind of socks around his ankles. It was a bit like someone from Love Island had won a contest. But yeah, I'm glad to see him back, and it will be good that he got some minutes in his legs as well, going into what is now the semi-final.
Yeah, so let's just keep going. Let's keep going with England as we're talking about them, and we'll talk about the semi-final. So obviously they're up against Netherlands, who actually made it look much harder than it probably had to be against Turkey. Did you manage to catch much of that game?
I didn't see much of that game. I saw like the back end of it, and actually I felt quite confident that the Netherlands were gonna get what they needed. They just they were well on top, and it felt like it was really coming. And then obviously those two quick goals, and then it's just chaos, like the type of football that we haven't really seen in this tournament, where Turkey had just thrown absolutely everything at it. And then the Netherlands would have another chance on the break, and it was just so chaotic for a few minutes. A real antidote to the other quarterfinals that we'd seen, I think.
I think that the Netherlands play a different style of football to every other team that we've faced in the tournament so far. And that presents an opportunity because it will be a more open game, but also a real risk because that attacking speed that they've shown throughout the tournament is going to be very dangerous.
Yeah, they've got dangerous players, and it feels like they're quite a nicely balanced team. Like they've got dangerous players up front, but also like really solid players at the back. Although I've heard like Van Dijk getting a lot of criticism actually, but obviously it's not just him back there. They've got solid players, and the goalkeeper looks pretty good.
Verbruggen's been really good all tournament. Yeah. Like I said on the pod last week, the goalkeepers have really impressed me. Jan Sommer, Oblak, Donnarumma, obviously.
Costa, is that it?
Costa. So they've got Costa. Pickford's been pretty decent too. So the keepers have impressed me. So from Verbruggen forward, they've got obviously Ake and Van Dijk, who are very solid, and De Vrij and Dumfries are also very good players too. So they're really strong. And then the youthful exuberance that they've got in Simmons, everything is just going through him at the moment. Probably rightly so. because he's just here to create. But yeah, so they've got threats. Like they played Bergwijn and Weghorst at the weekend. Obviously, Gakpo and Depay, Frimpong. Like they've got forwards that are very well known across the European leagues. So yeah,
Gakpo looks really sharp. Actually, he's going to be a problem. He looks really athletic at the moment. He can look really awkward at times, but yeah, he seems to be in the groove.
Liverpool fans that I've spoken to throughout the season have said, "Don't sleep on Gakpo." I think I used the "don't sleep on" phrase last week, but yeah, I think I'm using it again correctly. But don't sleep on Gakpo. Very underrated for Liverpool because of the other names that are in the Liverpool team. It gets overlooked sometimes, but is a serious threat. And I think we're now seeing it more so in a team that obviously elevates his position.
I think he probably only needs one more goal to secure the golden boot. The golden boot, the way the competition's going, that would put him on 4. But yeah, if he scored and knocked England out, then it'd probably be quite likely to get top scorer.
Own goals still looking pretty solid for the top goal scorer again. Every consecutive Euros tournament. So yeah, predictions. You're obviously still backing England to make it through.
Yeah, why not? There's no point in backing down now, is there? I am really looking forward to this one. It's one of those where you aren't going into it thinking they're going to win, because I feel like I've gone into every game so far feeling 100% confident that England were going to progress, whether that was via extra time or penalties. I've felt really certain that they were going through. Obviously, this game is very different. They will still be the favourites, and I think they are a better team than the Netherlands. But yeah, there's that extra jeopardy where obviously the Netherlands are a really strong side and have got strong players. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
You, similar age to me, we've experienced a lot of penalty hurt over the last 35 years. Really nice to see the confidence and assurance of those England players taking penalties.
I feel like it's gone. I feel like that's one of the big things that Southgate has done for England, and that is introduce a penalty regime, whatever he does in training, however they've worked on it in terms of their practicing and how they prepare for it mentally, or whether that feels like something that he's made a real tangible impact on, and they go into these shootouts now like genuinely not worried about missing. They feel confident in their ability to score, and you could really see that on Saturday. Obviously, those 5 players who took penalties, I would back every single one of them from the spot every single time, to be honest.
Does Trent take them for Liverpool?
Don't think I've seen him take one before, but he's such a good technician.
Yeah,
you'd just back him to strike a really true ball from 12 yards, and he did exactly that. And it was quite a nice position for him to be in, actually, to be taking the 5th penalty, knowing that it didn't really matter if he missed, because they'd already missed one. So, I felt like he kind of did you could see that he had real clarity, and he's probably played that over in his mind, thinking, there's only upsides here. I can just win it for us, and that's like exactly the way to be thinking about it. Great moment for Saka as well. We talked about his first half performance and the fact that he was probably England's best player, but that moment to put the penalty away must have been
the redemption arc.
It must have been pretty sweet for him.
Definitely. It puts it to bed now. Like, your last England penalty moment is now a goal and a progression through to the semi-finals rather than going out. So then on the other half of the draw, go on then.
Just to mention for Pickford as well, just to say that I think he's a big factor in the English penalty takers having a lot of confidence, because they back him to make at least one save. He's been brilliant for England in shootout. Brilliant for England generally, but in shootouts he's had some really big moments, and he had another one on Saturday, so fair play to him.
Yeah, and confidence in the semi-final too, if it goes, depends that the research is right, and he was going the right way and did so for 80% of them for 4 out of 5. So
yeah,
and,
I mean that picture of his water bottle just shows the prep that goes into it and how diligent they are with it. And I definitely think this setup of coaches has introduced that. Like,
absolutely.
How
but
many?
Then there'll be no hesitation. He's not doing it like looking at his eyes. He knows the way he's going to go regardless. Even to the point where it said fake left dive right.
Yeah.
Even to the point where he's going to be faking which way he goes before he dives. That level of detail means that he just focuses on what he knows he's going to do rather than actually being in the moment and doing it by what the player's doing in their run up. Other side of the draw.
Yeah, I mean, the less said about that France-Portugal game, the better, I think. Like, there is so little to say about France at the moment.
Well, I think the main story is obviously that supposedly two of the best players in the world in Ronaldo, or obviously one of the world's greatest ever players in Ronaldo, and what could potentially be one of the world's greatest ever players in Mbappe, just anonymous. Absolutely anonymous. Their teams couldn't get the ball to them, and when they did, they had no impact on the game whatsoever.
Yeah, apparently.
And then obviously, go on.
Apparently, Mbappe is not sleeping with this broken nose and is struggling to breathe. Apparently, which is what's being turfed out by French media and stuff about why he's underperforming.
I mean, fair enough. You're a nose breather and you've got a broken nose. You're definitely going to struggle to sleep.
Yeah.
I imagine they've got him in an oxygen tent. He's on breathing apparatus. He's listening to sleep stories. He's doing everything possible to sleep. So I imagine he's getting some sleep, but probably not the ideal amount.
Yeah.
But it will never be, that lack of sleep will never be to the detriment or will never affect you enough of the adrenaline of being in a quarterfinal in a European Championship to have that impact on your performance. So I think it's a pretty weak excuse.
Yeah, there was, like I say, they are sleepwalking through the tournament, basically, France. Like, probably like worse than England are. Like, at least England have had a couple of moments from players like the Bellingham overhead kick and that Saka goal at the weekend, and France just have not had that at all.
Own goal is still France's leading scorer, so
I mean,
it's a positive. I expect Spain to be quite accomplished in their demolition.
Well, I'm just worried about.
Right?
Yeah, I'm just worried.
You think France have got a game in them?
Well, about how Spain are going to come through that Germany game. Like, they were kicked from pillar to post pretty much from the first whistle. They've lost Pedri for the tournament. They've got no Carvajal on Tuesday because of his suspension.
Yeah, and suspended like in the last minute of extra time too.
Well, he was suspended anyway because he
had the yellow.
He already had the yellow. So yeah, I think you could see his reaction when he stood up. He was kind of like, "No, it doesn't really matter. I was suspended anyway." So I wonder how well they're going to come out of that Germany game, to be honest, because that looked like a real slog for them.
It did, and I mean. This could have been the final. Like these two teams, this would have been a final. Does Germany going out in the quarters represent an underperformance for Germany in their home Euros?
No, I
know they went out against Spain, so
they got a tough draw.
Right?
I think they ended up playing the best team by some considerable margin, actually. Spain have looked the best team. So I think because of that, there's a caveat to it. I still feel like Germany have been the second best team, but because they played Spain, they're out. So yeah, it's just like one of them, like the way the draw went. And it could have gone either way, that game. Like I thought when Wirtz got the equaliser that actually Germany were gonna go on and win. I really didn't see how Spain were going to win from there. The changes that they'd made and the kind of shape that they had really didn't look like they were hoping for penalties, I thought. So I was surprised to see Moreno kind of pop up with the goal as well. So we'll see. Like in terms of what the fallout is, I think Germany are still in a bit of a transitional period as well. To be honest, like obviously it was Kroos's last tournament, probably Muller's last tournament as well. They've got some good young players coming through, so I think it will be generally viewed as not a failure, another building block, and maybe in the broader context of them as a national team, the next tournament will be more of an indication of success or failure of this era of German football.
Yeah, so I think a big hit for them for the World Cup is probably going to be that, like you said, so Miller's not going to be there, and that's not too much of a problem because he's not really the mainstay in the team anymore anyway. But that Gundogan and Kroos are not going to be there is pretty significant. I think Gundogan is obviously, as their captain, he's 33 now, so maybe he'll be in the World Cup. Not sure. Two more seasons. 2 more seasons to go is a lot of football. In European football.
Yeah. And I think, they've got players who are going to be a couple of years older. They got that Musiala and Wirtz who are, Wirtz looks so good. I was surprised that he didn't start, really surprised that he didn't start. And I thought they looked much better when he came on for Sane. So I think that was a bit of an error by Nagelsmann, maybe a bit of an overthink from him leaving Wirtz out. Because like I say, they looked better when he came on. And they were unfortunate not to win it. Like Füllkrug had a really big chance at the end to equalise, to make it 2-2, I think maybe it was like one of the last kicks of the ball where it was a little bit behind him and he actually did well to kind of get it off in the right direction, but it was just past the post. So, but he looked a real threat. And
Füllkrug.
He's
like the new Podolski. He's like the new Podolski for Germany, although he's kind of found his German caps quite late. I say late on in his career. He's now 30, 31. So, I don't think he will be around long term, particularly, although for the present team, he makes a real impact in the role that he plays because no one else plays like it.
Yeah. Is he that old? I didn't realise he was that
31,
old.
31, yeah. I just checked again, 31.
Yeah. I think, they both, even though France and England aren't playing well, like I feel like they're both good-looking semi-finals, and hopefully we'll get 2 good games out of it, and also ultimately that England go through. But I would like Spain to go through, I think, but it's got a funny feeling that the French are going to strong arm their way through, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, so in the Euros so far, Spain have scored 11, France have scored 3. Interestingly, Spain have conceded 2, France have only conceded 1 goal.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, there are these big nations are not conceding many goals or even many chances at all. England are the same. Like, even though they've conceded a couple of goals in the last 2 games, they both felt like the only real big chances that they gave up. Like, I feel like the Swiss on Saturday got into good positions, but Pickford wasn't exactly making save after save. I think he made 1 in extra time.
I thought the defence was solid. Yeah, I thought the formation was right. He adjusted the formation correctly. But just going back to Spain and France. So France have drawn 3 in the tournament and Spain have won all 5. So, I mean, France drawing with the Netherlands and Poland and Portugal, pretty acceptable draws.
When you say it like that, they have had.
When you say who the names are, if you speak about 3 draws in the Euros, 3 draws and 2 wins, you're very surprised that they're in a semi-finals.
If you can compare that with the teams that England have been drawing against, Slovenia, Slovakia, Switzerland.
Yeah, and then if you compare that with who Spain have played, Croatia, Italy, Germany.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Should be 2 good semi-finals. Hopefully, if if England and France can put something together so that it's not just like another 2 drab games.
Yeah, I hope so. All right, so that's us for the next couple of days then. So we've got Spain versus France Tuesday night, Tuesday night, 8:00, and then obviously the same England versus Netherlands, 8:00, and then just one game left to go.
Yeah,
So
it'll all be over next pod that we do. I just realised that.
Yeah, so I was kind of saying about Germany's underperformance going out in the quarterfinals because I called them for the underperforming team.
Oh, right, you heard
at the start. Yeah. I was just trying to tee you up to support my hypothesis at the start of the tournament. Who did you call for underperformance? Belgium, was it?
Belgium, yeah.
Easy call now, retrospectively.
Who do I wish I'd said? I wish I'd said Croatia, actually. But...
Scotland. Who you actually called for overperformance.
Overperformers, and yeah.
Did they overperform, though?
Well, only -5 goal difference, so I think it's a low bar.
How's the tournament been for you in total? Obviously, now you're like 10, 15 football tournaments into your life. How's this one rank?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the most memorable. I think it started really promisingly.
I think so too.
But the further we've gone into it, the more of those smaller nations who are maybe willing to take a few more risks as they go out, then those bigger nations who are looking to win it and have a lot to lose are playing very cautiously. Generally, I think Spain, like we've said, Spain and Germany have probably been the two good teams to watch. It's just a shame that they came up against each other in the quarterfinals, and it's probably a shame as well the way that the draw stacked up. Like the fact that there were so many of those big sides on one side of the draw has probably meant. I don't know, but do you want the big sides playing each other at the same time? I'm not sure. You don't mind that if they're good games. And
look, hey, the similarities are actually really eerie with the Rugby World Cup from last autumn with England. England played very forgettable rugby for much of the tournament, limped through to a semi-final, and then actually performed very well and then got knocked out when they actually played someone of real standing in South Africa, who obviously went on to win it. But the similarities are so
uncanny.
Yeah, really uncanny how similar it's been, but the draws just fell into England's lap again. Didn't get it done in the rugby, got another chance again in the football. We'll see. I mean, we've still got 2 fairly decent games to go. I think probably Spain or France in the final. Who would I prefer? Probably France would be the better option. I feel fairly confident that we will beat Netherlands. I think we're the better side. Probably on paper, we are the better side. And the way that we played, like you said, for that 60 minutes, so for 2/3 of the game, and if we can keep building on that, then England quite comfortably through.
Yeah.
Watch this space. See you next week. On to the F1.
Home Grand Prix.
The home Grand Prix. Our home Grand Prix. Probably the home of F1 as well. I mean, the majority of the F1 teams are in Formula One Valley from Silverstone all the way round to Surrey with McLaren. You've got 6 F1 teams based. So a home Grand Prix for many of the teams, and the home Grand Prix for many drivers. Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, technically Alex Albon, and obviously George Russell as well. So George Russell started on pole, or qualified on pole, with Hamilton second and Lando third. So we had a top 3 British lineup for the British Grand Prix for the first ever time. So brilliant for the home supporters.
Yeah, amazing. Did Russell get? So I missed the start. I saw quite a lot of the race, but I missed the start. So tell me what happened, because I was in the other room and I could hear people shouting.
I mean, the start was stressful.
Yeah.
The start stress, and the reason why Silverstone is so good is because it is an authentic racing track where drivers can race and can overtake, because you have sequential corners where you can go for the inside line, and on the next corner you're gonna be on the outside line. Right. Whereas if you stick it on the outside, next corner you're going to have the inside line. So if your traction is good, then you've got a chance at a couple of corners. So that's pretty unlike any other circuit. You get that more at Silverstone than anywhere else. What also creates the jeopardy is at Silverstone, you're also more likely to get a rain-affected Grand Prix, which we did after about 30 laps. So the rain was coming in the whole time, as it was throughout qualifying, and it made qualifying really complex and engaging as well. But yeah, I mean, George got off to a pretty average start, and Lewis got a good start, but he managed to hold him off. Lando got overtaken at the start and dropped back. But then the speed of the McLarens, both Lando and Piastri, was just always going to cause problems for the teams. Whatever the position for the first 3 or 4 laps, that McLaren was always going to be competitive for the remainder of the race, for however it played out, whereas the Red Bull looks like it's probably dropped slightly in its position. And the Mercedes is obviously the upgrade we've spoken about over the last few weeks, has just kept on getting better. Home Grand Prix probably is a factor too. Like George said it at the end of qualifying, could hear the fans all the way around, and then the support really boosts you. Lewis says it gives an extra 10%. I don't know. Like, we talk about home advantage in other sports, like giving that 10%. And in rugby specifically, it's actually really hard to win away from home. Home advantage is very big, and I don't know if that's like a psychological thing for the players, just irrespective of the crowd, or if it is a crowd factor too. But Lewis spoke about it after the race. The crowd factor was enormous.
He was super emotional, wasn't he?
And rightly so. He's not won a race since 2021. So yeah, spoiler.
Not believe that, that seems crazy.
Yeah. And it is crazy when you know that he's 7-time world champion, but aside from those 7 world championships, he's been very competitive in 5 other world championships. There were ones where Red Bull absolutely ran away with it, obviously with Verstappen, but prior to that with Sebastian Vettel. So, but he was competitive when he was in the Brawn, when he was in the McLaren, as well as the Mercedes. So yeah, it's going to be interesting when he goes to Ferrari next year, because the Ferrari actually looks slightly off pace this year.
I wonder what he's making of that decision at the moment. Like there was a bit of chat yesterday that maybe he might have the inside track on some changes that Ferrari are planning on making or something like that, and maybe that's why he's made that decision. Because at the moment, it doesn't look like a brilliant call.
And we said exactly the same thing before he went to Mercedes. And the reason why we're saying about the inside track on Ferrari now is because he did have the inside track on Mercedes. And they were set up to deliver a dominant car for many, many years.
Yeah.
Does he have that inside track now, or are we just saying it because he had it when he moved to Mercedes? Yeah. I'm not really sure. However, I know that if I was a Formula One driver, and all Formula One drivers want to race in the red of Ferrari, so that's
it. That's it. Are we just overlooking? And is it one of those that's not that deep? And ultimately, he's managed to get a big contract for.
It'll be huge. Yeah,
for a huge manufacturer, and all the kind of romanticism that comes with driving for Ferrari in F1.
I think he'll be on a couple of $100 million a year.
Yeah. Yeah, big money.
And he's ticked off the major teams except for Red Bull in his career. So,
poor Lando made the wrong call, didn't he, on those tyres?
Which now, Lando's got. I think he's got 11 seconds and no first place finishes. He'll get a first. He's going to win because he's fast enough. And this was just one of those ones where it was the wrong tactical decision. And he's done it in the wet before. He's made the wrong tactical decision in the wet before.
Right, okay.
And it will haunt him a little bit on the next rainy Grand Prix, which is probably going to be at Spa in Belgium. But also so good to see the British drivers all competitive. Even Alex Albon in the Williams was very competitive and managed to pick up some points for them too. And the Williams actually didn't look too bad under James. I think his name's Vowles. Other James will correct me, but yeah, I think it's James Vowles who's the new principal at Williams. He's really turned the fortunes of the team around to turn them into a midfield team. The fact that they were ahead of Leclerc and obviously Perez too. Like Perez finished in 17th. We spoke about Perez last week. I'm going to touch on him quickly. He is severely hindering the team's chances to retain the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, massively underperforming with that car.
But yeah, like for Max to be still getting podiums and for Perez to be getting 6, 7, 8, 9, 10ths.
Yeah,
it can't be acceptable. I know the merchandising that they get from North and Central America from Perez is huge, and you see it specifically at the Austin Grand Prix in Texas. We've seen it. The support for Checo Perez is enormous. But how far are you willing to take that? Like to the detriment of the team where you don't win a constructors because of the support for one driver seems a little bit foolish. So I don't think they'll do that. And Red Bull have always been very shrewd and fast in getting rid of their second driver if they're not performing and aren't competitive. They've done it with Alex Albon. They did it with Danny Kvyat. They've done it with Danny Ricciardo as well. So I don't think they'll hesitate to do it with Perez. And they may do it in the summer break. I just don't know who they bring in. So maybe they don't.
And, it's not just about the points in the constructors. It's also about not having a foil for your main driver as well.
Yeah. There's no protection there at all.
It gives them no strategic flexibility at all. He just has to be.
You can't split your strategy on tires or stops, undercut, overcut with two of your drivers because they're just not competing.
Yeah, it's just on Verstappen to be the fastest. That's fine if you've absolutely got the fastest car and you get a clear run and all that stuff. But when you run into difficulties, when other cars start to get faster and have two really competent drivers who want to compete, then it becomes more difficult for Verstappen.
So the interesting thing we spoke about a couple of weeks ago or last week was that there was an 85-point gap between Red Bull and the number 2 team in the Constructors' Championship. That's now just 71 points. So it's eroded 14 points in the last 2 races. However, Ferrari didn't score great this weekend. So it's more that McLaren and Mercedes in 3rd and 4th position are also taking chunks out. I think Mercedes too far behind because they're 152 points behind. But McLaren are right there. They're 295 points. So they're only 7 points back. They're only 7 points back from Ferrari. So McLaren are in a very good position. And with the speed of the car and performance and the underperformance from Ferrari, I think McLaren are in a very good position to challenge for the rest of the season. Yeah. Summer break is going to be enormous in driver moves for next year, but maybe even this year.
The thing I wanted to ask about was Verstappen going past Norris, like right at the end. He seems to just move out the way, and like the people that I was watching it with, they said that Norris had mentioned something about this in his interview in the previous week. I was just wondering what the deal was there, because it seemed like he just allowed Verstappen to go through, and I'd kind of been looking at it thinking, okay, the gap between Verstappen and Norris is closing really fast and he's obviously going to catch him, but there's no way that he catches Hamilton because it's going to take him a few seconds to get past Norris. But then that didn't materialise, and actually they said on comms that he probably benefited from it because of the slipstream rather than it being to any detriment.
The only thing that I could think of would be how dead were Lando's tyres that he would want to fight for that position to know that he's going to lose it, that he'd rather protect the podium position and his position ahead of his teammate, who's also driving very fast at the moment, that he'd want to preserve his tyres for that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my head was at. So he didn't put up too much of a fight, knowing that Verstappen's just putting in faster lap times and is going to go past him, and it isn't worth what they had the previous week in that battle, where they both know that they're not going to yield. So it was better for him to actually just yield.
Right. Okay.
That's it's kind of my take on it. I'm not sure what his tyre position was at that point, but I'm sure they were pretty fried because everyone changed over at a very similar point in the race and then didn't make another change, and they were trying to make the tyres last for a fairly decent chunk of the race. So I think that's probably where my head's at on it, is that he was he was just thinking about preserving the podium rather than just damage limitation, rather than fighting Max for the inevitable. But a great home Grand Prix.
Yeah. Amazing finish. And really the best winner. I think anyway. It's great to see Hamilton be the. He's got the record for the number of wins at Silverstone now, hasn't he? So I think that's great.
Yeah. So Lewis obviously. I don't think he had the speed in the race and didn't look as confident in the wet either. But then subsequently, his car had some water tank issues, and they had to retire the car, which was a bit of a shame when he qualified on pole. But then kind of superseded by Lewis actually getting the win. Will have, that'll hurt. That hurt Georgia a lot, but great for the team and for the British fans too. Another home of sport event. Wimbledon Tennis Championships. A bit more British interest this year, probably, than last year, as we've now bid farewell to Murray. I kind of felt like we bode farewell to Murray several years ago, but he's actually now retiring. So yeah, it was really nice to see actually that his last match was with his brother. There was something really sweet about that, and they did a little video montage on court afterwards, which was really special too. So I think they gave him a really nice send off. Then if he'd have come out 2 days later and played his mixed doubles match and had the same had the same show reel, would have been a bit awkward.
So we watched all of that, and the match itself, he was not moving well at all, have to say. But I thought his brother was terrible at the same time. I don't know if the occasion got to Jamie Murray a little bit, but yeah, they were never really on for the win, which is a shame. But it made me think, with all that stuff that was happening afterwards, because I was a bit like, are they doing this now because they thought he was going to lose? Was this all pre-planned because they didn't really think there was any chance that he was going to win? Or would they?
Which is a surprise, because the doubles team they were playing against had never played together either. And the Murray brothers have a lot, but obviously Andy's very injured. Yeah. And Jamie Murray's not on form and hasn't played for a couple of months. So,
yeah. And they're quite an old pairing as well, aren't they? Are they 36 and 37 or 37 and 38?
So you've replaced James on the pod for the ageist remarks.
Hey, look, I'm just saying. They didn't look like a pair of spring chickens out there.
No, they didn't, no.
So yeah.
So saying that, in the mixed doubles right now, Jamie Murray's playing with Taylor Townsend from the US, and they've gone through to the last 16. So
maybe you just needed the warm-up.
Saved it for the mixed.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm not sure what the setup was, but obviously they did all of the goodbyes to Murray and stuff like that, but he was still due to play in the mixed doubles. That didn't happen in the end because Raducanu pulled out. So I was relatively surprised to see her playing on Sunday. But yeah, she also crashed out to a qualifier, New Zealand qualifier. It was a great match to watch.
Lulu's son, but it looked like Raducanu's not been on form and has been inconsistent for the last, since her US Open win. When was it? Was that in 2021? 3 years ago?
Yeah, maybe right. Maybe 2020.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe even earlier than that. But the women's draw and the women's seeds, it's like anyone can beat anyone.
It
Very,
feels like,
very difficult to call.
Yeah. Coco Gauff went out as well, didn't she? So, it does feel like that women's side of the draw is whoever turns up at the tournament in good shape has a good chance of winning.
Yeah. And then in the men's singles, obviously the favourites are pretty much still in it,
aren't they? Yeah. So
with Alcaraz, Sinner, and Djokovic. Is Djokovic through today, or is he still playing?
He's playing at the moment, I think. Yeah, he's playing at the moment, and he's 2 sets up. So yeah, he's going to be going for it.
So this time next week, we will also have our Wimbledon champions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
everything's going very, very, very quick and fast. It feels like it's a little bit of an end of an era for these 30-something-year-olds in British sport, because we also have, and we spoke about it last week on the pod, Mark Cavendish, who this will probably be his last Tour de France, now that he did actually get that 35th stage win. I don't know if they just gave it to him, because it looked like it was an incredibly comfortable sprint.
Okay.
A very comfortable sprint for him. But yeah.
Yeah. So he's like the record holder for stage wins now, right?
Yeah, 35 versus Eddie Merckx, the Belgian's 34. Eddie Merckx was a GC rider, so he was actually competing for the Tour as well as getting stage wins. He was just winning lots of stages. Whereas Cav is just a sprinter, so only has those sprint stages. But racing for 20 odd years, you're going to have the opportunities if you stay fit, and he's not managed to stay fit. He's had severe health issues. So to come back from those in a very grueling event as the Tour de France, to then get yourself to the front of the race after 180 kilometers of racing, to then sprint it out with 20-somethings at the start of their careers with fresh legs is, an incredible achievement. What a career he's had.
It was amazing to see the chain kind of snap at the end. Like there's this amazing shot of him crossing the line, and then the chain on the bike like completely snapping. Apparently, it's like quite
common.
That happened. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, I mean, you and I aren't putting
you kind of force through the.
We're not putting enough force for our pedals,
no.
But they're also they've got a lot. Their bike tension, the chain tension, is a lot higher than ours is too. So that definitely is a factor too. And when they're putting the power down for the last couple of 100 meters, it is common. But we spoke just before we were recording. We spoke also about the Eritrean Biniam Girmay, the first ever black stage winner, and is winning other stages too, and is
another one over the weekend, isn't he?
Yeah. So is racing very well. So that's brilliant. Like getting the diversity of a very traditionally white male middle class sport. Really, really good to see that diversity in the sport, and specifically from the African nations as well. We've got some South African cyclists too, but to have one from Eritrea, really brilliant for the sport, I think.
Yeah, amazing, great to see.
So we've still got another week and a half of the tour. We just got a rest day today, and then we're back at it and entering into the mountains now. But certainly the main contenders are still there. Today, Pogačar, we spoke about last week, he's retained the leader's jersey. I do expect him to win. Vingegaard is probably his main challenger and isn't quite looking like he's quite fit enough. And then Remco Evenepoel, I don't know that Quick-Step have got the team to deliver a general classification win for him and to support him up the mountain stages with attacks from Pogačar and also Primo Roglic, who's the other Slovenian racer who's also won a Tour. So we'll see. But yeah, I think it's Pogačar's to lose at the moment. But anything can happen on these mountain stages. You never know when the altitude hits you. You don't really know, and what happens if people have crashes too. So yeah, going to be watching that one over the next week as well. Any sport you're going to be following aside from the Euros?
No, I think we'll be focusing on the Euros. Yeah, Euros and Wimbledon as well. Yeah, I like the last week Wimbledon. Always enjoy that. So I think I'll be. I mean, I don't love Novak Djokovic, but I really love those that era of tennis players. So yeah, I would like to see him win, I think.
Has this been one of the biggest or the best sporting weekends of the year?
The one just gone?
Yeah.
Could have been, yeah.
And will next week be the biggest?
yeah, exactly. So that was just the warm-up. Next week's the big one.
Yeah, you got the tour, you've got the tennis, the cricket will be on as well. We've not spoken about the rugby, but we've got the rugby summer tours are happening at the same time as well. There's a lot going on right now. And then obviously we'll be building up to the Olympics that starts in 3 weeks' time. Just less, actually. Just less than 3 weeks' time, and some of the events are happening. Preliminary rounds are happening in the week before. So as we get up to that, we'll be doing some more regular pods, reviewing and previewing and reviewing what's happening in the Olympics. Otherwise, we'll only have 2 Olympic episodes because it comes and goes so quickly.
Yeah. It's over before you know it, isn't it?
So look out for that. If you've enjoyed the pod, give us a like and subscribe on Spotify and click auto download to get it as soon as we release it. Get in touch at allsportpods@gmail.com and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, Joel.
Cheers, Matt.